Speech in the style of Elon Musk, direct, visionary, no fluff. There's a simple rule I follow. If something is important enough, you do it, even if the odds are not in your favor. Excuses don't launch rockets. Excuses don't build companies. Excuses don't solve hard problems. Results do. We are surrounded by people who are very good at explaining why things didn't happen. The budget wasn't enough. The market wasn't ready. The timing wasn't perfect. The team wasn't experienced. The tech wasn't mature. It doesn't matter. The universe doesn't reward intention. It rewards execution. You either made it happen or you didn't. That's the only line that matters. The world we live in was built by people who refused to wait for permission. They didn't need 10 meetings and 3 approvals. They didn't look for consensus. They made a decision, took a risk, and acted. That's what creates momentum. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. You want to make something revolutionary, then solve for constraints. Don't complain about them. If the timeline is insane, find a way to compress it. If the tech doesn't exist, invent it. If the team isn't ready, lead them. If failure is likely, take the shot anyway. This is the mentality that turns impossible into inevitable. Comfort is a trap. If your days are easy, your impact will be small. Real progress happens in discomfort, working when you're tired, building when no one's watching, choosing the hard path every time because it's the only one that moves the needle. You can't be obsessed with efficiency when you're trying to do something that's never been done. You can't optimize the unknown. Sometimes you have to go from 0 to 1 with nothing but belief and the will to grind. People will tell you it can't be done. That's noise. Ignore it. The best way to silence critics is to build something that works. Not a pitch deck, not a prototype, a result. Something that lives in the world and proves them wrong. Speed matters. Velocity of execution is the difference between becoming a footnote and becoming a force. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You launch, learn, and iterate fast. Perfection is the enemy of momentum. You will fail, you will hit walls, you will break things. That's part of the process. What matters is whether you get back up, fix it, and move forward. Every single time. Resilience is a superpower. There is no magic. There is only work. Long hours, deep focus, relentless drive. If you're looking for balance, this isn't for you. If you're looking for excuses, this isn't for you. If you're looking to build the future, start now. We are not here to follow. We are here to lead. We are not here to play it safe. We are here to change the rules. The clock is ticking. The world doesn't need more excuses. It needs solutions. It needs courage. It needs results. So whatever you're building, build it with urgency. Build it with clarity. Build it with obsession. Excuses don't build the future. Execution does. That's the dividing line between the people who talk and the people who build. In any industry, any discipline, any mission worth pursuing, the variable that matters most is action. There will always be reasons not to move forward. Constraints, setbacks, failures, lack of resources, lack of support. Those will never go away. But the difference between those who shape the future and those who remain spectators is the willingness to act in spite of them. Excuses are easy. They're logical, they're accepted, they make people feel comfortable, and they give an illusion of thoughtfulness. But in the real world, they're worthless. They don't ship products. They don't launch missions. They don't change paradigms. People often get caught up in analysis, in waiting for perfect information, in seeking perfect conditions. That's not how forward motion happens. If you're trying to do something that hasn't been done before, by definition, you won't have a map. You will make decisions based on incomplete data. You will get it wrong sometimes. That's fine. What's not fine is sitting still and convincing yourself that you're being smart by not making a move. Action is how you learn. Action is how you iterate. Action is how you create leverage and momentum. Waiting is how you become irrelevant. Every breakthrough, every disruptive company, every world-changing invention, none of them were born from perfect circumstances. They were born from execution under pressure. They were built by people who moved, who took risks, who didn't accept excuses from themselves or their teams. They knew the only thing that moves the needle is building. Talking about building doesn't matter. Planning to build doesn't matter. Actually putting in the hours, solving the problems, and delivering results. That's what counts. There are people who spend their time talking about the future, forecasting it, imagining it, predicting trends. And then there are people who just build it. The builders are the ones who understand that results are the only scoreboard that matters. No one remembers who had the idea first. They remember who executed it best. You don't get points for having potential. You get points for getting things done. That's the difference between being early and being first. Being early doesn't matter if you don't deliver. Excuses also come in the form of systems. Bureaucracy, corporate friction, internal politics, legacy infrastructure, these are all convenient shields people use to explain why things can't move faster. But great leaders don't let those shields stand in their way. They break process when necessary. They bend the system. They create new paths. They focus on the outcome, not the red tape. If the system blocks execution, change the system. If the process delays results, redesign the process. The goal isn't to comply with the rules. The goal is to deliver what matters. You can see this mindset in the way high-performance teams operate. The best teams have a bias for action. They don't wait for every edge case to be resolved before they ship. They don't seek comfort in consensus. They prioritize clarity over alignment. They understand that done is better than perfect, and they know that you can't steer a parked car. Even a flawed launch teaches you more than an endless debate. Execution leads to feedback. Feedback leads to iteration. Iteration leads to excellence, but you don't get any of that unless you're willing to act. The people who execute are the ones who stay close to the work. They don't sit in meetings all day debating high-level strategies. They're in the code, in the prototype, in the warehouse, in the factory. They understand the product deeply because they're part of building it. They don't wait for permission to solve problems. They just do it. They don't need 10 levels of approval to try something new. They launch, test, learn, repeat. Execution is not about having the title or the resources or the ideal conditions. It's about ownership. It's about being accountable for results, no matter the circumstances. When you take away the noise, it all comes down to one thing. Did you deliver or not? Everything else is a distraction. Execution creates value. Excuses destroy it. If you want to lead, you have to ship. If you want to innovate, you have to take risks. If you want to change the world, you have to stop explaining why it's hard and start proving that it's possible. The people who do that are the ones who leave a legacy, not because they were the smartest or had the most funding or worked in the perfect environment, but because they made something real. They produced results. They kept moving when others paused. They refused to be stopped by excuses. They didn't wait for certainty. They moved with conviction. They got their hands dirty. They executed. Solve for constraints. Don't complain about them. Every ambitious goal comes with friction. Every bold mission runs into walls. The natural response is to identify those walls, describe them, explain them, analyze them. But that's not enough. That's not what builders do. Builders look at constraints not as excuses to stop, but as prompts to engineer new solutions. Constraints are not dead ends. They are pressure points for innovation. When you stop seeing limitations as obstacles and start treating them as design parameters, you shift your entire mindset from reactive to proactive. You stop asking, "Why can't this work?" and start asking, "What would it take to make this work anyway?" That's the question that unlocks progress. Some of the most disruptive ideas in the world were born from scarcity, not abundance. When you don't have enough resources, you're forced to invent better systems. When you don't have time, you learn to focus. When you don't have support, you get resourceful. Constraints are nature's way of demanding focus. They filter out noise. They force you to prioritize. And more importantly, they push you toward elegant, efficient, and often counterintuitive solutions that would never emerge in a frictionless environment. Complaining about constraints is easy. Anyone can point out what's missing. But it takes a certain kind of mindset to ask, how do we move forward anyway? That mindset is rare. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about refusing to be ruled by it. It's not about pretending the challenge doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let it define the outcome. The problem with most organizations and most people is not that they face too many constraints. It's that they allow those constraints to become boundaries for their thinking. They let limitations shrink their ambition instead of sharpening their approach. In the world of engineering, constraints are a constant. Mass limits, energy constraints, supply chain bottlenecks, regulatory walls, labor shortages, bandwidth ceilings, all of it. But the people who thrive in these environments are the ones who take these variables and design with them, not against them. They don't fantasize about unlimited budgets or perfect conditions. They take the materials they have, the rules they're given, and they build anyway. And in doing so, they often arrive at solutions that are more robust, more scalable, and more resilient than anything that would have come out of a blank check scenario in product design. Constraints force simplicity. They strip away unnecessary complexity. They force you to get to the core of what matters. When you only have time to build one feature, it better be the right one. When you only have one shot to make something work, you become obsessively focused on reliability. When you can't afford mistakes, you invest in precision. Constraints push you to do less but better. That's not a limitation, that's an advantage. It keeps teams aligned, it keeps vision tight. It forces clarity. The same is true in time-constrained environments. If you only have 3 months to launch, you don't waste time chasing marginal gains. You focus on critical path items. You simplify decisions. You shorten feedback loops. You ship. Urgency becomes a forcing function for excellence. It burns away the unnecessary and reveals what's essential. It's in these conditions, tight deadlines, high stakes, limited resources, that real creativity shows up. Not in endless planning sessions, not in hypothetical discussions, but in pressure. Pressure is the crucible where innovation is forged. The best leaders instill this mentality in their teams. They don't let people whine about constraints. They don't reward victim thinking. They don't tolerate paralysis. They create cultures where constraints are treated as problems to solve, not reasons to stall. They ask better questions. How can we get 80% of the impact with 20% of the cost? How can we simplify this process to reduce time to launch? How can we re-architect this system to eliminate the bottleneck? These are constraint-driven questions, and they lead to real-world results. When you build a company, a team, or a product around this way of thinking, you unlock compounding gains. You train people to see roadblocks as puzzles, not barriers. You turn every obstacle into an opportunity for iteration. You stop being afraid of friction and start leveraging it. This mindset scales. It becomes a competitive advantage. It's why some teams can outperform others even with fewer resources. It's why some products win despite being built on smaller budgets. It's why some startups run circles around established players. They don't wait for ideal conditions. They master the art of building under pressure, even in the world of space and advanced tech. industries that seem like they require infinite resources. The most successful breakthroughs come from solving hard problems under hard constraints. Launch weight limits, fuel efficiency trade-offs, atmospheric conditions, extreme heat, vacuum, radiation. All of these are non-negotiable constraints, but none of them stop progress. They become the canvas for innovation. They force first principles thinking. They demand elegant design. They drive relentless iteration. This isn't just true for hardware, it's true for leadership, strategy, and operations too. If you want to scale, you have to design systems that work within constraints. Not despite them, there's a mental shift that happens when you stop resenting constraints and start respecting them. You begin to see them not as annoyances, but as signal. They highlight the real challenge. They draw attention to the weak points in your strategy. They reveal the assumptions you need to question, and they push you to think deeper, to design better, to lead with more clarity. When you operate this way, you don't just solve the problem in front of you. You build a system that can solve many problems over time. That's leverage. That's how progress compounds constraint. Based thinking also reduces waste. When resources are tight, you can't afford to build features no one uses, launch campaigns that don't convert, or hire people without clear roles. Scarcity demands discipline, and that discipline creates operational excellence. It sharpens strategy, it forces alignment, it brings out intensity. That's why some of the best products and ideas come from small teams with limited funding. They have to be smart. They have to execute. They have to build something people want. There's no room to hide behind budget, process, or polish. That same energy should be carried into every phase of growth. Just because you scale doesn't mean you forget how to solve for constraints. If anything, the stakes get higher. More people are depending on the outcome. More complexity is introduced. More decisions need to be made with speed and clarity. The teams that succeed over the long term are the ones that never lose that constraint, solving mindset. They treat every dollar like it matters, every hour like it counts, every problem like it's theirs to own. They move with urgency, not because they're rushed, but because they're focused. They stay lean, not because they're underfunded, but because they're sharp. They never let comfort slow them down. They never let excuses replace execution. They solve for constraints every time they show up, and because of that, they win. Velocity of action beats perfection every time. Too many people get stuck in the loop of trying to make something flawless before they release it, afraid of criticism, afraid of mistakes, afraid of falling short of expectations. But the world doesn't reward ideas locked in notebooks or plans sitting in slide decks. The world rewards speed, momentum, iteration. The ability to move fast, learn fast, and improve fast outpaces theoretical perfection in every real-world scenario. Momentum compounds, execution speed compounds. Every day something is not shipped is a day you're behind. Not just behind schedule, but behind the future. Because the future doesn't wait for you to feel ready, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about quality. People think perfection is a prerequisite for credibility, when in reality, credibility comes from consistent progress. The companies and individuals who dominate don't sit on version 1 until it's flawless. They release, test, collect data, fix bugs, optimize, and evolve. Every iteration gets sharper, every launch teaches, and every customer interaction gives feedback that theory never could. The pursuit of perfection becomes a trap when it prevents movement. Movement is what builds mastery. Movement is what builds products. Movement is what wins speed of execution, sends a signal. It tells the market you're serious. It tells your team that urgency matters. It tells your competitors that you're not playing defense. More importantly, it creates psychological leverage. When people see progress happening in real time, it changes the energy. It creates pressure to keep up. It shifts the conversation from speculation to results. It attracts talent. It builds trust. No one follows the person who's always talking about what they're going to do someday. They follow the one who's already doing it in a fast, changing environment. Speed becomes survival. If the feedback loop is too slow, you don't see the warning signs. If your deployment cadence is too cautious, you miss the window. If your decision-making is too slow, opportunities vanish, markets evolve. Competitors move, conditions shift. The only way to keep up is to out-execute, not out-plan. You can't predict every variable, you can't control every input, but you can move, you can act. You can ship something small today and learn from it. You can test a hypothesis instead of debating it for 3 more weeks. You can build systems that reward movement, not hesitation teams that operate with velocity focus on leverage. They understand that not all work is equal. Some actions unblock others, some decisions remove bottlenecks, some progress opens up entire new levels of operation. These teams prioritize speed not for the sake of chaos, but for the sake of clarity. The faster you move, the faster you find out what matters. The faster you find out what matters, the faster you align resources. And the faster you align resources, the more you accomplish with less friction. Velocity is not about doing more things. It's about doing the right things faster, so you can get feedback faster, make decisions faster, and level up faster. Waiting for perfect timing is an illusion. There's no such thing. Every launch will feel incomplete. Every new idea will feel like it needs more testing. Every decision will come with risk, but nothing gets better by standing still. You can fix a bad product. You can pivot from a bad decision, but you can't salvage momentum if you never built any. You can't fix what doesn't exist. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to course. Correct, because you don't have any signal. You're operating in theory, not in reality. Theory never beats shipping. Speed also fuels motivation. Momentum creates its own energy. When a team sees their work go live, when they get responses from real users, when they see improvement from week to week, it creates a loop of pride, urgency, and accountability. When a team only sees endless planning, endless revisions, endless meetings, it kills that energy. It replaces action with anxiety. People stop feeling ownership. They stop believing their work matters. Speed gives purpose. It creates a pulse. It tells people this matters now in engineering. Fast iteration is how systems evolve. You don't get to the best architecture by dreaming it up in isolation. You build, you stress test, you refactor. In product, fast releases let you out. Learn your competitors. In strategy, fast decision making lets you reallocate faster, shift gears, capitalize on windows before they close. In leadership, fast feedback helps you course. Correct people and priorities before they drift too far off track. Every function of a company benefits from velocity because velocity reduces waste. It cuts through indecision. It exposes weak assumptions. It prevents perfectionism from becoming paralysis. There's a myth that moving fast leads to sloppy work. That's only true if your systems are weak. Strong teams build mechanisms that allow for speed without sacrificing quality. Automated testing, rapid prototyping, daily check-ins, short feedback loop. All of these are tools that support fast motion. Speed doesn't mean recklessness. It means confidence. Confidence that the team can ship, handle feedback, and adapt quickly. Confidence that the process is robust enough to sustain iteration without burnout. Confidence that done today beats perfect next month. Because perfect next month might never arrive. Great companies don't operate on endless timelines. They work backwards from fixed points. They launch before they're ready. They challenge themselves with deadlines that feel unreasonable. They compress timelines not because it's easy, but because it forces clarity. It forces trade-offs. It forces action. Every constraint becomes a catalyst. When time is short, you find out what really matters. You eliminate fluff. You ship core value. And once the engine is running, once releases are regular, once the culture of velocity is embedded, you're not just faster. You're more focused, more resilient, more adaptive. Velocity is also a mindset. It's not just about product or process, it's about how you think. Do you default to motion or hesitation? Do you look for reasons to start or reasons to wait? Do you challenge timelines or defend comfort zones? The people who build fast aren't reckless. They're committed. They don't fear mistakes. They fear stagnation. They don't worship the perfect plan. They trust in progress. That mindset compounds. It sets the tone for everyone around you. It infects a team with energy, boldness, and urgency in a world of endless meetings, endless options, endless distractions. The ability to move fast is rare, and because it's rare, it becomes a superpower. Fast teams win because they act while others are still thinking. Fast teams learn while others are still hypothesizing. Fast teams iterate while others are stuck revising. In the race to relevance, speed matters. Not because it guarantees perfection, but because it guarantees evolution. It guarantees signal. It guarantees that you're in the game, not on the sidelines. Execution velocity is what builds momentum. Momentum is what builds belief. Belief is what attracts talent, customers, and capital. It all starts with action, not the perfect action, not the safe action, just fast, focused, iterative action. You don't win by waiting. You win by moving, learning, and adapting before anyone else gets there. Resilience and obsession drive real innovation. The people who change industries, disrupt markets, and build things that seem impossible are never casual. They don't dabble. They don't experiment with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They are consumed by the mission. They think about it when they wake up, when they go to sleep, in between meetings, in moments of silence. Obsession fuels the stamina required to go deep, to push through walls, to get up when the world tells you to stop. It's not a temporary passion. It's a long-term fixation. It doesn't fade when things get hard. It sharpens. Innovation is not linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and filled with setbacks. There are breakthroughs, but there are also breakdowns. There are wins, but there are long stretches of grinding work without visible progress. It's in those moments that resilience matters most, when the idea doesn't work the first time, when the team is exhausted, when the funding is tight, when the critics are loud, when nothing seems to be moving. That's when obsession keeps you locked in, and that's when resilience keeps you coming back. The myth is that great innovators are driven by pure inspiration. The truth is they're driven by relentlessness. They don't get discouraged by failure because they expect it. They've built a relationship with it. They understand that each failed attempt carries information, that behind each mistake is insight. That most people give up not because the problem is unsolvable, but because their tolerance for failure is too low. Resilient minds treat setbacks as signals. They analyze, adjust, and go again. They don't collapse under pressure. They metabolize it. Obsession sharpens focus. It eliminates distractions. When you're obsessed, you say no to almost everything else. You're not trying to balance 10 priorities. You're chasing one thing with everything you have. That level of intensity may seem extreme to some, but it's the price of real breakthroughs. Innovation doesn't come from working hard when it's convenient. It comes from working through the discomfort, through the doubt, through the exhaustion. When most people would rather rest, the obsessed keep building. When most people wait for inspiration, the obsessed create regardless of feeling. They are internally driven. They don't need motivation. They have compulsion. Resilience isn't about brute force. It's about adapting under pressure. When a solution doesn't work, a resilient person doesn't repeat the same mistake. they evolve, they analyze what failed, and they build a smarter approach. They keep their eye on the mission, but they remain flexible in how they reach it. This combination of fixed vision and fluid tactics is what allows innovators to pivot without losing momentum. It allows them to shift direction while maintaining intensity. Resilient teams don't crack under uncertainty. They respond with iteration. They find new angles, new inputs, new hypotheses. They keep moving forward, even if forward looks different than they expected. Obsession provides the energy to do deep work. It's not about working more hours just for the sake of it. It's about being so deeply engaged with the problem that you lose track of time. It's about going deeper than anyone else is willing to go because you care more than anyone else does. That depth is where insight lies. That's where breakthroughs come from. Not surface-level engagement, but full immersion. When you're obsessed, you don't need to be told to go the extra mile. That mile is the baseline. When you're resilient, you don't crumble when that extra mile turns into a marathon. You keep pushing because the goal matters more than the discomfort. Real innovation also requires emotional resilience. The ability to take criticism without folding, the ability to hear no and keep going, the ability to stand alone when others doubt you, the ability to walk through rejection, ridicule, and resistance without losing your fire. The people who make history are often misunderstood. They're told they're wrong, crazy, reckless, but they keep building, they keep showing up. They keep refining, proving, delivering. They don't need external validation because the mission is internalized. They're not doing it for approval. They're doing it because they believe in what they're building more than anyone else does. Resilience also means enduring boredom. Innovation isn't just about brilliant ideas. It's about execution, repetitive, detailed, often mundane execution. It's about fixing bugs, reworking models, running tests, dealing with logistics. The ability to stay committed through the unglamorous parts of the process is what separates finishers from starters. Obsession makes this possible. It transforms even the tedious parts into meaningful work because it's all in service of the mission. The obsessed don't need every moment to be exciting. They just need progress. They just need signal. They just need to know they're moving closer. There's a reason most people don't finish what they start. They expect the journey to feel good the whole way through. They expect immediate feedback, instant wins, continuous validation. But innovation isn't built in those conditions. It's built in the dark, when things aren't working, when no one's watching, when doubts are loud and progress is invisible. The resilient push through that darkness. The obsessed learn to operate in it. They don't need applause. They don't need comfort. They need the mission. That's enough. Obsession and resilience create a self-reinforcing loop. The more obsessed you are, the more willing you are to endure. The more you endure, the stronger your resilience becomes. The stronger your resilience, the more risk you can take. The more risk you take, the more likely you are to uncover something no one else has. Innovation lives at the edge of risk. It lives in discomfort. It lives in uncertainty. Most people don't go there, not because they're incapable, but because they're unwilling to stay in that zone long enough. The resilient and obsessed live in that zone. They build a home there. This mindset doesn't just apply to founders or engineers. It applies to anyone solving hard problems, designers, operators, strategists, builders at every level. If you want to do work that matters, you have to be willing to go beyond what's comfortable. You have to be willing to stay focused when the world is distracting. Stay determined when the path is unclear. Stay committed when the odds are against you. Obsession gives you direction. Resilience keeps you on the path. Together, they create unstoppable force. The future doesn't belong to the smartest. It belongs to the most relentless. Intelligence without grit fades. Talent without obsession stalls. Vision without resilience dies in the face of resistance. But when obsession and resilience combine, they become a force that bends reality. They push timelines, they overcome inertia, they turn doubt into proof, they make things exist that never existed before. They move the world forward, not because they were told to, but because they couldn't stop themselves from doing it.